I always forget that mic. Hello, welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack. This is your latest Manchester United news. And we've got plenty to talk about. As you can see, the title of the live tonight is the Solskjaer, I suppose, reveal all. He's been speaking on the Stick to Football podcast with Gary Neville, Roy Keane, Jill Scott, and Alan Wright. Or not Alan Wright. Ian Wright, Jesus. And yeah, he's had an awful lot to say about his time at Manchester United and so on and so forth. And we're going to dive into some of the things that he's been saying. But before we do that, please smash a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. We're on the road to 8,000 subscribers. And of course, as always, get your comments into the comment section and we'll go through them as the live progresses. Anybody watching on TikTok as well, guys, you can jump over to YouTube or live over there. We've got all the articles on the screen as well. Link is on my homepage. Head over to YouTube if you want to get involved in the chat as well. But we're going to jump straight into it, guys, and plenty to talk about here. And we're going to start with this man, Cristiano Ronaldo. So obviously, look, Solskjaer has been, I won't say grilled, but I mean, he's been asked, a series of questions in relation to his time at Manchester United and even before he was at United. And some very interesting insights, it has to be said. Some positives and majority of them negatives in relation to maybe how Manchester United have been run and, you know, how hard maybe it was for Solskjaer to actually manage the team and so on and so forth. But we'll get straight into it. Again, look, I'm really interested to see what all you guys think about this as well. So keep the comments flying in and we'll get through them all, I promise. But he starts up with Cristiano Ronaldo and he was asked about the signing of him because there's been a lot of talk over the last few weeks. I think it was mentioned that Solskjaer wasn't even considered when Ronaldo became available. I think the deal was actually done before Solskjaer was even made aware of it. But he does say that when it became apparent that he was leaving Juventus, obviously there were other clubs that wanted him, but I was excited. United asked me, would you want us to try this? Solskjaer said, yes. Obviously, we know Cristiano is quality and he's 37, but we have to manage. He's the best goal scorer in the world. It didn't work out for me. It didn't work out for Cristiano, but it was the right decision at the time. I mean, look, I was delighted when Cristiano Ronaldo came back to Manchester United. I really was. The excitement around the club, you know, it was a very good summer transfer window, you would have to say. You know, we had Ronaldo, Varane, and Jadon Sancho, I think, all signed in the one summer, which was brilliant. And the season before, we had just finished second, I think. So we were all talking about this is the time for Manchester United to push on. However, I always in the back of my mind, we were saying, and I think a lot of Manchester United fans were saying, is Cristiano Ronaldo the answer here? You know, maybe short term, yeah, okay. If it does work, you know, brilliant, you know, and we can, you know, we could really kick on and maybe challenge for a league title. Obviously, it turned out not to be the case. And he goes on to say about Cristiano Ronaldo, he says, with the ball, with him in the team, it was no problem. Without him pressing, we had to change a little bit. The different roles we had gotten used to, we were one of the highest pressing teams before Ronaldo joined. And that was one of the major talking points that everybody was mentioning when Ronaldo signed, was that, you know, is this going to actually improve not the team, because of course Cristiano Ronaldo coming in is going to improve the team, but is Cristiano Ronaldo going to get us closer to the type of team that we want to be? And I think that was a big no. I have to say, I really do. I think it's a big no, because Ronaldo coming in, everything needs to go through Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the focal point. He's the main man. He's not going to track back an awful lot. You're basically down to 10 men when you haven't got the ball. And I think that was a major turning point for United at the time. I don't know. Look, Solskjaer seems like a very honest, and I always say this about him. You know, he's a Manchester United legend, you know, as a player. As a manager, it didn't work out. Could it have? I think it could have. I think maybe, you know, would he have had the quality to maybe sustain Manchester United back at the very top? Probably not. But would he have been good enough to maybe challenge for a league title maybe win an FA Cup. He was obviously very unlucky, in the Europa League with us. But I think these kind of decisions that were made, this decision wasn't made by Solskjaer. I know for a fact this decision wasn't made by Solskjaer, bringing Ronaldo back. It was a club decision more than anything else. It was a Glazer move. And I understand, look, Ronaldo coming back at 37, the greatest goal scorer in history, whatever it may be. It was short-termism, if that's even a word. I'm not sure if it is. And it cost us. It did. It set us back. It set us back a long way. Not a long way because, we weren't too far advanced. But we finished second the year before. Obviously, the year after then, we finished third. Yeah, I think these little small decisions, I think, are ones that probably Solskjaer looks back on now and kind of regrets a little bit because, he would say, oh, Jesus, if maybe I had just been a little bit stronger. But he does go on to say, we let Dan James go when Cristiano Ronaldo came in, and they're two different types of players. It was the right decision to make for me. It didn't turn out to be the right one. And I don't have this up on screen, but he goes on to say that in hindsight now, it wasn't the right decision to sign Cristiano Ronaldo. He said from a club standpoint and from the player himself, he says we would have all probably been better not, coming back together. And I think that's a very honest assessment from him. And it's one that, obviously we know how sour it got at the end with Ronaldo under Ten Hag. I still haven't forgiven Ronaldo for what he done. There was moments even under Solskjaer's reign where, Ronaldo, obviously Solskjaer mentions it in the interview that before Ronaldo signed, he was kind of signing on the basis of he plays maybe 3 out of every 4 games, and rested for the 4th. But then when he's dropped, Solskjaer says he's annoyed, he's pissed off, he's, throwing little hissy fits. And I think, was it Roy Keane or maybe Gary Neville that hit the nail on the head quite well, saying that, is that not disappointing from your standpoint that you're getting a 37-year-old Ronaldo? Is he not supposed to be the one leading the team and, dragging the young lads forward and showing a good example? And I think that's what annoyed me most when he left in the circumstances that he did with Erik Ten Hag and refusing to come on and leaving the stadium. It showed a complete lack of unprofessionalism and a bad influence, for the players that were already there and the young impressionable players as well. Let's see what people are saying in the comments here. Neverworld says, that fits my entire head of sales in charge of recruiting instead of head of recruiting. Yeah, absolutely. Danny says, in my opinion, Ollie should have been involved. He should have been told. I love Ronaldo. I was delighted when he came back. We made a mistake letting him go again. Bover says, we haven't been fit to improve or help players for years. Bringing anyone in, whether they're young or old, we will them. I agree. There's been very few players that have come to Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson that have actually gone on to improve themselves. Bruno Fernandes is probably one. I would probably put Luke Shaw in that category as well, maybe. It's hard to think outside of that, to be quite honest with you. It is, of course, worrying. Oshin says, Solskjaer is such a Man United man. He's protecting the club even now, despite how he was treated. I couldn't agree with you more, Oshin. I think you're absolutely spot on. He doesn't want any bad blood with anybody. He's a gentleman. But I think he did get enough across for him to be happy and come away with, saying what he wanted to say. Moving away from Cristiano Ronaldo, he talks about Erling Haaland and the opportunity that Manchester United had to sign him. This doesn't make for good reading. He said, I had him in Molde for 2 seasons. The summer before I got here, I rang the club and said, you've got to sign this boy. He's top class. That was in July 2018, and they said no. Now, he goes on to say, again, I haven't got all of the quotes on screen, but he goes on to say, I think he was asked how much would it have been, how much would you be able to have signed him for, or United would have been able to sign him for, and it was 20 million. United would have been able to get Haaland for 20 million. Now, who's to blame for that? Is it Ed Woodward? Is it the scouting system? Did they not have enough data on him? I don't know. But one thing is for sure, Manchester United really, 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 really missed out. And it was a big, big, big loss. It really was, you know. Now, look, would Erling Haaland have fallen into the same category as a lot of other Manchester United players that have signed and stagnated a little bit? That is something we will never know. But when you hear that Manchester United had the opportunity to sign Erling Haaland for 20 million, I mean, it doesn't make for good reading. It really, really doesn't. And I think, again, when he came to Manchester United, when he was in the interim role, he recommended Erling Haaland again and said, look, you've got to sign this lad. He didn't play when he signed for Salzburg, he said, at the start for a few months, and he was still available. And yeah, United again refused a second time to go on and actually sign him. So yeah, look, I mean, it's now, and supposedly as well, he was open to the move. You know, there was a release clause there. He was open to it, and it just never came to fruition, unfortunately. And another player, now maybe this is a player that United couldn't have got, but actually had in Carrington, and that's Jude Bellingham. When talking about Jude Bellingham, he said, Jude was in the building at Carrington. I was there, Sir Alex Ferguson was there, Brian Robson and Eric Cantona were there that day. We all spoke to him and sold it as well as we could, but he knew what he wanted, X amount of minutes in the first team. He was the most mature 17-year-old I've ever met. He had it all planned out. I think we were never getting Jude Bellingham. I really don't think we were. You know, rolling out Sir Alex Ferguson, Brian Robson, Eric Cantona. There was even talks of Roy Keane was supposed to be there as well, but he never bothered showing up, which I thought was quite funny. I don't think Jude Bellingham was ever going to Manchester United, and the reason being was that he wanted X amount of minutes in the first team. And I don't think Manchester United would have probably offered it to him. As good as he was, and as good as he went on to become, I don't think he would have got that amount of game time. I really don't. You know, we're talking about a player that would have signed for Manchester United that's, I think, maybe nearly 18 months younger than what Kobbie Mainoo is now, which is staggering when you think about it. I don't think he would have got that game time. I really don't. He was, and look, I mean, who are we to say? I think Jude Bellingham made the right decision going to Dortmund, because he got game time, he improved his game, and he moved on to Real Madrid, and now he's absolutely tearing it up. You know, let's see what people are saying. Luke says, love Stick to Football, and the Ollie interview was definitely the best episode. Hearing about people not wanting to captain the club and not do pre-season interviews shows a lack of character. We'll get into that in a minute, Luke. I've got that coming up as well. Spoke very highly of McTominay, which was surprising enough, but seems like he's one to step up. Well, the one thing I would say about Scott McTominay, no manager has had a bad word to say about him. He came in under Mourinho. Mourinho loved him. Solskjaer loved him. Rangnick had great time for him, and it looks like Erik ten Hag has good time for him as well. You know, so like there's this Harry Maguire falls into the same category here as well. Is that I don't think their professionalism has ever been questioned, you know, by Manchester United fans and their work rate and their effort. I don't think that's ever been questioned. What Manchester United question is quality and what we see on the pitch, you know, and that's what the likes of McTominay and Maguire are missing. I don't think it's a personal attack. It's just, you know, we're looking at players that are probably not good enough. Well, most certainly not good enough, you know, to get Manchester United back to the levels that we want to be at. And that's the issue most Manchester United fans have. Danny says, what's your thoughts on the rumour going around Erik ten Hag? We're going to get into Erik ten Hag in a few minutes, guys, as well. Some potential candidates being looked at by Manchester United. Oshin says, who do we sign in 2018 again? 20 mil madness. In 2018, that's a very good question. It's one that I'm going to find out now. Man United transfers 2018. So 2018, 2019, Manchester United signed... We signed Fred for 59 million. We signed Diogo Dalot for 22 million, and we signed Lee Grant for 1.7 million. That's who we signed in 2018. Yeah. Yeah, that's depressing. Anyway, it just shows who's been running our club, says Ben. Absolutely. Neverword says the scouting system has been non-existent and remains to be, and hopefully we will. Hopefully there's changes in the coming months. To be honest with you, I don't think the scouting system is the issue. I think Manchester United have a very good scouting system. It's actually taking the recommendations from the scouts. Maybe that's the problem. We've been recommended fantastic footballers, down through the years. We haven't been able to get the deals done since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and David Gill left. These are the issues that Manchester United have been having. I think, when it comes to top players, every team in Europe is going to be looking at them, or at least the majority of them. It's actually getting the deals done is where, you separate the men from the boys. And Manchester United are just not good at that. We're just not good at it. Danny says, it's madness that we never went and got Haaland. 20 mil is nothing compared to what he will cost now. Oshin says, McTominay, maybe we're all wrong. Maybe we all see a different McWhistle. Look, we're not wrong in what we see. I think, again, Scott McTominay is somebody who has taken advantage of bad recruitment at Manchester United and bad negotiating and bad tactics. I'll plug out the one on the right, yeah. If we had, good negotiators that could go out and spend money on good players in central midfield, Scott McTominay wouldn't be playing for Manchester United as much as he is. At best, he would be a rotation player, a squad player. And I think that's probably what we're going to see over the next couple of seasons. Will Scott McTominay leave this summer? It's not a cert that he will leave. I have no problem with him staying if he's happy to be a bit part player. No problem. We've said we need depth in our squad. And I would be happy with Scott McTominay playing against the lesser teams in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, or, even the odd game against maybe a relegation team in the Premier League. No problem. Or him to come on with 15, 20 minutes to go when you're 2 or 3 goals up to see out a game. Absolutely no problem. Our issue is we're over-reliant on these types of players. And I think the main reason for that is down to bad recruitment over the last 6-7 years or so. And so on and so forth. So, Oshin, getting back to your original point, I don't think we're wrong in what we see. I really don't. Now, there's a professional player there. There's a player who loves Manchester United and who's passionate about the club. Absolutely, that is clear to see. But what's also clear to see is the lack of ability. You know what I mean? And that's the harsh reality. Desi says, Jack, I think McTominay would be a better player with the right players in the squad. It's hard to play for United at the moment because technically we're not fucking playing any style of football. That's a good point as well. Maybe so. And I think, if you're putting McTominay into that bracket, I think there's an awful lot of other players at Manchester United that could potentially fall into that bracket where, we're saying these players could potentially play an awful lot better if there was better players around them. I mean, a Luke Shaw maybe being more consistent. Maybe, a Marcus Rashford getting more consistency in his game if he wasn't relied on so much. Maybe the spotlight coming off of him a little bit. Whoever is playing on that right-hand side. Garnacho, for example. I mean, Garnacho, for an 18, 19-year-old, is being relied on an awful lot. And I mentioned it in the Talking Points video after the Manchester City game, that he's a player, if you compare, say, him to Phil Foden is a player over the last 4 or 5 years who can be drip-fed into the first team and really, really learn his trade without too much pressure being on him. And now look what he's doing. Whereas Garnacho is just, right, we need you and we need you now, so you have to start pretty much every game. And I think that's where growth can stunt a little bit, if you know what I mean. Neverword says, I'm passionate about United as well, but I'd be shite in the midfield. Yeah, well, that's true. You know what I mean? That's absolutely true. I agree with you there. Let's get on to what else Solskjaer's been talking about. He's been talking about Harry Maguire, and he says that he loved Harry Maguire as captain. He was a leader of the group when he was at the club. He was asked then as well, why do you think maybe or where did it start? Where did the kind of the turn in form start for Maguire? And he mentioned the trip in Greece, when he got arrested over there. And he said it all kind of went a little bit downhill from there for him. I think Harry Maguire, I think a lot of the reasons for Harry Maguire's downfall are regression in terms of ability. Because if you remember, the first maybe year to 18 months of Harry Maguire's United career, he was a very, very solid defender. He really, really was. He was a very solid defender. That incident happened then in Greece. I think then Cristiano Ronaldo comes to the club and he's no longer, he's technically the captain, but, you know, can he really tell Cristiano Ronaldo to work harder on the pitch? It's, you know what I mean? And whether that should be an issue or not, it's something that would be playing on somebody's mind. You know, if Maguire is there, and I'm not saying they don't get on or anything like that, but if Maguire says something to Ronaldo, and the first time Ronaldo reacts back and says, "You ever fuck off, will ya?" Maguire's going, "I can't really say anything to him." You know, and a captain has to be able to do that. So that was a hard thing for him. You're also talking about the captaincy then being removed from him. And I think that was a big blow. And I've said this on countless occasions about Harry Maguire. I think he's been one of the most professional players we've seen at Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. The professionalism of him has been absolutely sublime. You know, never moaned, never whinged, cupped his ears once or twice, which I didn't agree with when he scored a goal. But he's been an exemplary professional, you would have to say. Put his head down, worked hard, believed in himself. We were saying last season we wanted him to go, and I still want him to leave. I still don't think he's good enough. It's not a personal attack on him. But he put his head down, he worked hard, and he's seen an uptake in his performances this season. And fair play to him. He deserves the credit that he gets for that. He's still not good enough in my eyes to be Manchester United's starting centre-back. Again, he's a type of player that if he wasn't on so much money, I would be delighted for him to be a backup centre-back if that's what he was happy to be. No problem with that whatsoever. But I think he's probably on too much money. That's the issue that I've got with that one. Let's see what people are saying. Maguire's downfall is when he went to Greek prison, says Chris. Harry Maguire is a great defender facing away from his own goal. If you turn his hips, he's toast. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Danny says, Harry Maguire, not good enough to be United captain. He's a good player, but he's not good enough to be a first-team player. He's a good squad player. Chris says he's a low-block defender. Yeah, and I think that's why he got such a good reputation, playing with the likes of, Leicester, and was it, who was he with before that? The Tigers. What are they called? I can't fucking remember who the black and gold. Anyway, yeah, but these types of, and again, we mentioned it where we mentioned, anybody wondering on TikTok where I'm reading out all the comments, guys, we're live over on YouTube as well. I'm reading out the comments on YouTube. Link is on my homepage. If you want to come over to YouTube, jump in the chat. We'll be able to read out your comments over there. Somebody is saying Hull City. Spot on. Hull City. And the reason why we've been saying Maguire has been, or could potentially be very good at the likes of a West Ham, is because they play a low block, like Chris is saying here. And I think that's probably the best way for him going forward. I really do. Neverworld says that comes into play as well and links up with what Ollie was saying. What players in their right mind is going to take the armband and tell Ronaldo to get his game together? Absolutely. Georgina, thanks for the gift. Much appreciated. Take nothing away from his professionalism? Absolutely. Ben says Harry Maguire doesn't suit a side like ours. He'd be brilliant in a team that play defensive all the time. Luke says, completely agree. If Haaland and Bellingham were forced to be depended on at United, why would they turn out like they did? Dortmund and Salzburg were good to develop as young players with less pressure. Barber said, had to go change the child's nappy. Did Jack bring up the two sheikhs? The two sheikhs? I don't know what that means. Finn says he's a good player, not a great player. Eamon Dunphy. It was a joke, Bill. Moving on. Again, we'll finish up on Solskjaer in a moment. We've got one or two little more pieces, and this is going on to what Luke was asking earlier on and talking about players refusing to be captain. Really big talking point. And Solskjaer, what he had to say about this is that no one said no to being the club captain, but they didn't want to be captain in certain games. They didn't want to say it to me, so they got other people, like coaches, coming to tell me. It wasn't pretty, or it was petty, sorry. I mean, we're talking about mentality at Manchester United, and this just goes to show the type of mentality we've been seeing over the last few years at the club. It's pitiful, to be quite honest with you. For anybody to be able to stick that armband under arm, obviously, is I mean, I would do it. I would do it against anybody. It would be such an honour. For players to turn it down because of the pressure it brings, just goes to show the type of mentality that's been in this squad, and in my opinion is still there. And I think Erik ten Hag is doing his absolute utmost to try and get this nonsense mentality out of the team, and it's proven very, very difficult for him. It really, really is. You know, Solskjaer goes on to say as well about interviews. Many players refused to do pre-match interviews. Bruno Fernandes always did it. Maguire, Lindelof, McTominay, De Gea and Shaw always did it. The others were worried about the questions. I mean, I understand if somebody is shy. Like if you take, you know, an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, for example, he just doesn't do them. He's an introverted person. He's shy. He doesn't speak to the camera an awful lot. Paul Scholes, for the love of God, you know, in his 20 years playing for United, probably spoke to the media 15 times. You know, some players are like that. But for a player to refuse to do it because they're worried about questions, or to refuse the armband to be the captain in certain games, like that, what that reads to me is, oh no, I don't want to be captain against Liverpool, or I don't want to be captain against City, but I'll be captain against, you know, fucking West Ham, or, you know, Sheffield United when we, you know, beat them 6-0 or whatever the case may be. And it's just small-minded mentality. And Erik ten Hag, we're going to get onto him in a few minutes, but this is the kind of nonsense that he's dealing with. It's still there at Manchester United. It's still evident within the squad that, you know, we are a soft-minded team. Now, I think we're improving. You know, when you bring in a Casemiro or a Lisandro Martinez or a Rafael Varane, or even I think Bruno has a very good mentality. He's probably a little bit too passionate sometimes. It is improving, but we've got an awful long way to go. I mean, we've got an awful long way to go to weed out this weak mentality. It has to be said. Let's see. Anything... All right, Puffer. Danny says, in my opinion, we didn't really have a captain at the moment. Bruno not good enough to be United. I disagree. I think Bruno is good enough to be United captain. I just think he needs to stop the petulism, or the petulance a little bit. Alan says, what's your opinion of Graham Potter if he manages United? We're going to get onto that in a moment, Alan. I've got a piece coming up on the potential new manager candidates for United. We'll be getting onto that in a moment. Bover says, times have changed. The game is commercial now. It's all about sponsorship and what you're allowed like and allowed say. Chris says, I can't fault guys for not doing interviews as long as they don't promote themselves after a good match. Refusing the armband is a sign of no passion. If they didn't have enough passion to pull the armband on, or say to the gaffer face, give it to them, they'll be better, then they shouldn't be gearing up. There we go. And Oshin says, refuse the armband, you're not what the club needs. All 11 needs to be captains. I agree. Like if I was manager of Manchester United, and how do I put this? If I was manager of Manchester United, which I will never be, and a player refused to be captain or didn't want to be captain, I would just go, okay, that's no problem. But the cogs would be turning in my head going, when can we get this guy out? He's not in my long-term plans. He doesn't have the mentality. He doesn't want to be captain. He's obviously not strong enough to play for a club like Manchester United. What is he here for? Is he here for the money? Is he here for the is it a stepping stone for him, so on and so forth. To refuse the captaincy of Manchester United is a massive insult to a club with that kind of stature. And it just proves small-mindedness. I would be going, right, lovely, I'll use you as long as I need you, and the second I can get rid of you, you're gone. That's what I would be saying. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Now, look, one more little piece on Solskjaer before we move it on, because he goes on to say about when the season he was sacked, and he says, I'm 100% sure that we would have finished in the top 4 in the Premier League if I'd stayed that season. Absolutely sure, because what happened after I left didn't really improve things. And again, I go back to, and again, I love Solskjaer. I will always love Solskjaer. That goal that he scored in the Champions League final is probably the greatest moment in Manchester United history. That the one single moment. Solskjaer will always be a United legend and someone that I will always love. I didn't think he was the greatest manager in the world. If things had have been different, if we had a club that was well run, that could say no to Cristiano Ronaldo, that could, spot that Jadon Sancho was a fraud, that could, there's multiple different scenarios that you could say about Solskjaer. If we had a well-run club, could he have been more successful at United? I think so. I don't think he was a bad manager. I think he will probably move on in the game and be a decent enough manager, absolutely. I feel very sad for him that he didn't win a trophy at United. It would have been brilliant for Solskjaer, in hindsight now looking back. And I know it got shit towards the end and it was time to go and all of that stuff, and we were all very down about the whole situation and the football we were playing and the results. But looking back now after it's all over, how good would it have been if Solskjaer had won something with Manchester United? It would have been brilliant. That Europa League, I'd say he's still kicking himself over that Europa League. And look, he will always be a legend of Manchester United. I think he done the club proud. I think he managed the club in the way that he thought was right. I don't think he had the overall say, or maybe enough say that he should have had either. And these are all things that we can look back on now and be a little bit disappointed about. But it's what can we do? What can we do? Matthew says, wouldn't have seen Keane or Neville or players like that refusing. Game has changed, players lost the passion and just want the payday. Ryan says, we don't have the old core players who used to put new guys in their place and lead in the dressing room. It's not just the captain's job. I 100% agree with that. There just isn't anyone to take that role. Well, at United, I think we do have. I mean, Lisandro Martinez stands out as a massive, plus and a primary example of someone who could be a very good captain at United. And I think he will be in the future if he stays there. I can understand that, but who's honestly deserving of captaincy at United? That's why it was offered around. Danny says, Ollie wasn't given the backing. He wasn't given enough of a chance. He had to put up with the Glazers and they run the club badly. As soon as you're captain, you've got media, managers and players on you. It's ridiculous pressure. So I can understand that players didn't want it. Yeah, but not wanting it doesn't mean you shouldn't take it. There's a big difference between not wanting it and not taking it. I would say a lot of players that have been captain down through the years at United probably have gone, right, yeah, okay, I'm captain, but I'd probably be just happier training and staying away from the limelight. But if that honour is bestowed on you, or if that honour is entrusted in you, you have to take it, in my opinion. And again, look, this is coming from a fan, so you know what I mean. Oshin says, sorry, that old chest infection is starting to clear up. If we had a club that was well run, Ollie would never have been there. Hurts because he's a legend, but tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, you're right, Oshin. You're 100% right, and that's a completely valid point. we wouldn't have needed an interim manager, and we wouldn't have pulled the trigger on an interim manager because he had a run of games that were good. You know what I mean? Paris being one of them. So you're absolutely spot on. Finn says the armband is like the number 7 jersey. It weighs heavy, and when United aren't going well, you'll be in the firing line in those positions. Absolutely. I agree with Oisin. Mourinho would still be here. Mourinho would probably still be there if the club was run properly, says Neverworld. There we go. Yeah, so you're all on the same wavelength there, guys. And you're all absolutely spot on. Do smash a like on the video as well, guys, if you haven't done so already. Thumbs up on YouTube. I want to move it on from a former manager to the current manager. And Mark Ogden has been talking about Erik ten Hag. Obviously, Mark Ogden is the senior writer for ESPN, and he's been speaking today, and he is saying that Manchester United are now drawing up a contingency plan for the possible exit of Erik ten Hag this summer. Opinions are being explored to gauge the credentials and availability of possible replacements. Now, you're not going to want to see who's on the next slide, but Roberto De Zerbi, Thomas Frank, and Gareth Southgate are being assessed as potential successors to Erik ten Hag at Manchester United if he leaves this summer. Fuck. That's all I'll say. So, look, I mean, we all know this noise is going to be coming. And if we don't start winning games, it's going to continue to rumble on between now and the end of the season. However, my opinion on this matter is that, I've said this before, I want that man to be a success at Manchester United. In my opinion, he's got pretty much every credential needed to be a Manchester United manager. He's done well in Europe. He's won leagues. He doesn't take any fucking bullshit. He promotes youth. He likes to play attacking football. All of these things are ticks on the CV of Erik ten Hag, or any manager that's going to be coming in and managing Manchester United. And was it Goldbridge that said it? And for once I agree with him. He said if someone else was manager of Manchester United at the moment and we were looking to replace whoever that manager was, we would be looking at Erik ten Hag. And he was fucking spot on. He was absolutely spot on. Ten Hag is on thin ice, I think, at the moment. I really do think he's on thin ice, and I worry for him. I really do worry for him. I'm going to repeat myself, and you will be sick of me saying this between now and the end of the season, because the internet is full of fucking dickheads who want to sack him. So I'm going to try and balance it up as much as I can. I want him to stay. I want him to be given time under the Ineos structure, under a CEO, a football director, a technical director who are fucking capable at their jobs. You know, all linked in with the scouting department, Dave Brailsford and Erik ten Hag deciding on players to sign. That's what I want. And I think Erik ten Hag can be very successful as a Manchester United manager if he's supported in the right way. He has had fuck all support since he's come to Manchester United, you know, in terms of, and even the support that he has gotten has been mismanaged support. Anthony is a big example. He wanted Anthony, and okay, he may have got it wrong, but when United went out to get Anthony, we paid triple what we should have paid for him. And that pressure is now falling on Erik ten Hag. You know, he made a great signing in Martinez, a great signing in Rasmus Højlund, a great signing in Casemiro, a great signing for free in Christian Eriksen. I think Malacia was a brilliant signing as a backup left back. All of these are good signings without a good structure in place. I mean, if Erik ten Hag is just a piece of that jigsaw of, you know, Dave Brailsford, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, whoever else is coming in as technical director, and Erik ten Hag, a little child's 5-piece jigsaw, and they're all in there. I think Ten Hag would work wonders. I really, really do. And I hope he's given time. I hope he's given... Now, when we get on to talking about this list of, you know, potential candidates, you know, we're talking about Roberto De Zerbi, Thomas Frank and Gareth Southgate. Now, what have any of them done before that Erik Ten Hag hasn't? You know what I mean? That's my point here. Let's break it down and talk about, I mean, if we're starting from scratch under Ineos, okay? If we're starting from scratch under Ineos and we're doing a clear out and we want to get in new players and we want to change the structure and all of this stuff, why wouldn't Erik Ten Hag, let's say Manchester United didn't have a manager at the moment and all of these managers were available, Ten Hag would be top of that list. He would be number one on that list, given what he done in the Champions League. He's won leagues in Holland. He's been part of the Bayern Munich setup under Pep Guardiola. He plays attacking football. He promotes youth. All of these things, you know. I think it's probably 50-50 at the moment, but I'm leaning towards Ineos actually keeping Erik Ten Hag. I think they'll keep him. I think they'll give him 12 months. I don't see why, if you're going to change so much around the manager, and let's not kid ourselves here, he's working with fucking nothing at the moment, you know, and he still has his, well, I was going to say within touching distance of the Champions League. We're still in the mix. We're still in the hunt. You know, he won us a trophy. He got us into the Champions League last year. What more do Manchester United fans expect? What more do you expect for the ones who want Erik Ten Hag out? What more do you want? We all want to win the league, but we don't have the players to do it. So I think Erik Ten Hag staying is a real possibility, and I hope to God it is under Ineos. Name me a manager out there who would do a better job with this current squad and what's going on now at Manchester United. Roberto De Zerbi is below United in the table with supposedly, you know, one of the, you know, an unbelievably assembled team that play in a certain way. Brilliant season last year. It's very hot and cold this year. Thomas Frank has, you know, had a very good first season, but again is, you know, hot and cold with Brentford, but obviously he's probably established Brentford as a Premier League side now, you would say. And Gareth Southgate, I mean, what in the name of fuck has that lad ever done other than bottle fucking finals and semi-finals? You know, because he's not able to read a game and make changes in game that can actually make you go on and win things. So I think if everything is put into a melting pot and you're looking at a manager that you want maybe to take us forward under the new Ineos umbrella, I think just leave Ten Hag there. I think that's your best option. And I hope and I pray that Jim Radcliffe, Dave Brailsford, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth all come to that conclusion at the end of the season, because I want Erik Ten Hag to stay. So anyway, I hope you agree. And thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video if you haven't done so already. If you're new to the channel, please do hit subscribe as well. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the morning news show as well. If you have subscribed, guys, and you haven't turned on notifications, please do. Turn on notifications, hit all. You'll get notified as soon as we put up a new piece of content. The morning news show will be back again tomorrow morning from 10 o'clock. Give it a watch if it's on your lunch break or whenever it is. Drop a comment on it and hit the like button as well, because the algorithm loves all that kind of stuff, and it makes it and helps the channel grow on YouTube. So I do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel on TikTok, guys, please do hit the follow button. It helps the channel out an awful lot. I do appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the morning. Hope you have a good evening. See you soon. Take care.